Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Where we had left off was that both parties had an encounter with Strahd, quite a violent one that would prove to perhaps be a turning point in their relationship. Prime has watched Irina be kidnapped from the Burgomaster's mansion in the center of Vallaki, a daring daylight attack by Strahd and the werewolves to take Irina out from within the party's very grasp and spirit her away. In Alpha, Strahd has found himself stymied. He knows Irina is in Vallaki. He doesn't know exactly where. He wants to minimize her chances of escape if he comes for her, so he has orchestrated an ambush. He sets upon the players in Kresk and tells them he will continue to kill members of their group until they tell him where Irina is. After the death of Fair Lucian, action tells him where Irina is, and Strahd immediately departs to go find her, not knowing that Rictavio has silently sent word ahead to Erwin Mardikov, whom they now know is a member of the secret society of Were-Ravens. Hopefully Erwin will be able to intercede in time in a way that will help keep Irina safe. But for now, the party is unaware of whether that's going to work or not, and they have dead Lucian to deal with. They've also been very badly hurt, so they decide that they are going to long rest. The Burgomaster of Kresk is very apologetic that they've been put in this possession and offers to let them spend the night in his house. Before they do this, they're going to have to hunt down Hot Dog. Hot Dog was beat up real bad by Strahd at the beginning of their fight and ran off into the town, and he's just been sort of running around frightened and hurt and won't let anybody get near him. So their solution to this is to get close to him, and Nyx takes her pastry from her pocket that she's been carrying since day one of the campaign and just kind of throws it off to him and then backs away. And Hot Dog cautiously goes and gobbles it up and then runs away from them a short distance and then sort of zonks out and just stands there. And they, at their pace, are able to go and take him and guide him into the back of Rictavio's cart and lock him in there again. So we safely recover Hot Dog without him hurting himself. And this is the only real suggestion that we get in the whole campaign of what what the pastry does. So Lucian is undergoing an experience right now. He is dead and finds that being dead, he can see a lot more of Barovia than he's accustomed to seeing. He's wandering around and taking this in, and here's our dead Lucian, and he happens upon a specter. This is the ghost of the teenage son of the Burgomaster and Burgomistress, who is sitting on his own gravestone just outside of the family home. He has died only a few days ago of illness and is still coming to terms with his new existence as a ghost. We never had... I don't think that we had particular art of him during the game, so when I was making this slideshow, I was looking around for, okay, I need an image of a teenage boy who is a ghost. So I came up with this. And he and Lucian kind of get together and talk about what's going on with them. And already the party has been talking about this because we've heard, or we've talked, in fact, to the abbot previously. So we know that he is capable of raising the dead. And Lucian, not needing to rest, decides to get a head start on this. And this new companion that we have here, who I meant to write down his name. Oop, don't worry about that. That's me clicking my accident. I think his name is Ilya or something like that. They decide that they're going to go head on up to the abbey ahead of the companions. So during the night, they're walking up here. We find on the way up that the winds are extremely dangerous to our misty ghost forms. We manage to get through it okay, but Ilya's essence is actually reduced somewhat. He does fail this first check and will have disadvantage on subsequent checks. They come up to the graveyard outside of the abbey, and we see this ghost of a woman who says to Lucian, "My holy symbol was taken from me. It is kept with my body in a crypt far from here. Return it to me, and I will give you something. I will give you my blessing, basically. And her spirit fades away, but we can see on her headstone what her name is. The party will go on from here to eventually Castle Ravenloft, where they find her tomb, which also has her name on it. In the crypts beneath the castle, they find her holy symbol, and they fully forgot about this moment and never made good on it or returned. If they had returned that holy symbol to this grave, it would have split open and the earth itself would have upheaved, and they would have found a ring of regeneration inside, which is a ring that just while you are wearing it, you constantly regenerate hit points. So,
wow.
Yeah, so we just kind of...
I even wrote it all down.
What's that?
I even wrote it all down.
Yeah, Julia recorded in extreme detail the encounter with this woman, including her name. And when we see her name, like, years later, while we're in Ravenloft, there is not an inkling of recognition. This is actually a really nice holy symbol, and we use it and talk about it quite a bit. And at no point do we connect these two events until after the campaign. So we move forward from this deeper into the Abbey. We're exploring this a little bit, and we come in and peek in at the abbot and Vasilka. He is teaching her how to dance, and it's very creepy. And Lucian says, I'm going to go explore the rest of this Abbey. And Ilya says, cool, I don't want to do that. I'm going to stay here where things are just kind of a little creepy. And Lucian says, cool. So Lucian will go off and start checking things off. And Lucian is the only character in either game to explore the eastern wing of the Abbey at all. So we're going to lean in and pay attention to what Lucian discovers. Lucian ghostly goes into the first floor of this wing of the Abbey, and we find that there are cells all the way down this block that are packed full of mongrel folk. There are dozens, scores even of mongrel folk in here that are just ravenous. Whenever they're not eating, they are like chewing on bones in here. They're living in their own filth. We get the sense that the ones that we've seen out in the courtyard, are monstrous as they are the sanest of the mongrel folk, and there are others just absolutely packed in here. Like the worst kind of hygiene of any asylum patient. And there is a creature that is patrolling up and down the dark hallway in here. And Lucian only gets a look at it a bit from a distance, and it is described to him as kind of this lumbering figure, and I think maybe I said it was wearing a cloak or something like that, but that it had this monstrous shuffling appearance, that it was like 8 feet tall and extremely broad. This is the first draft of the abbot's attempts to create creatures like Vasilka, and it is in fact a flesh golem, just a standard flesh golem. And Lucian is very careful to never get too close to it, and it does not make any particular like sounds. It doesn't vocalize as it's going around. So this was an issue in terms of things that we could discover in this area, is that the way that I decided I would telegraph to talks that creatures were empty to the extent that they could be possessed was that when they spoke, they would have this sort of echoing feeling to their voice. And these creatures don't speak exactly. And Lucian isn't really interested in doing scientific experiments with creatures like this when he sees them. He's interested in staying away from them. So we don't explore too carefully what possibilities are we're capable of here. But certainly if Lucian had decided to go up and say, hey, can my ghost form go inside of this guy? You would have found that, yes, you could in fact possess this creature and shamble about in his body. So... But in fact, that is the last that we will see of this character. We go upstairs, and
We did the right thing.
yeah, and we kind of stumbled through some other rooms up here. There's an old room that looks like it was like kind of a hospital room, and there's all these beds laid out, and it's perfectly dark in here. But Lucian succeeds a perception check and notices that there are the shadows of people under the beds in this room, which, given that there's no light and no people in here, is extremely weird and upsetting. Lucian decides to leave this room. We have a couple of other rooms that we slide into as a distraction from this. Oh, can I remember what they were now? One of them is the nursery, and there's all these empty cribs in it. One of them is maybe the surgery room, and one of them is the morgue. And we at some point, at different points, at some point we come back into the main hospital room, and there is just a nurse in here now, like folding laundry, facing away from Lucian, where there was nobody before. And so we run away from her as quickly as we can. And
Alan, can I interject real quick?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything you could do about it, but the presentation quality is
I purposefully dropped it really hard because it was causing such problems. If it's really bad, I can kick it back up a bit and see if it's okay.
I mean, I can tell, like, the color scheme of the slide.
Okay. Give me a sec.
Yeah, maybe just like up a teach.
We're going to go back up in resolution. How's this?
Oh, that's much better.
Yeah? Okay. All right. We'll see how this goes. In one room, there is a table with an old dark blood stain on it. And in this room, we get a vision of the past, of sort of the memories that fill this space. And Lucian beholds the abbot many years ago, though he still looks about the same, with a man who he only refers to by the name Mr. Bellevue. This is an individual unfamiliar to us, but the name is perhaps familiar. And Mr. Bellevue is saying something to the effect of, like, I want to be different. I want to be greater. I want to be more than human. Absolutely. Do your experiments upon me. And the abbot is going, okay, my child, if that is how I can best serve you, then I will do what I can. And begins to operate surgically without anesthesia on this individual. Lucian also detects that in this space, there are malevolent spirits who have begun to notice him and follow him. These are the shadows that have crept out from under those beds, and he goes to make contact with one because he's so brave, and becomes under the impression that if he were to sustain contact with this creature, possibly it would have an extremely upsetting, corrupting influence on him. So it's about this point that we've had enough. And we decide we're going to skip on back over to the sunshiny place where the abbot is, because we've decided that that's the least creepy place in this abbey, and that's actually where we want to be. By this point, the rest of the party has finished resting, and they ascend up to the abbey, and they join here. We decide that we're going to begin the ritual. We brought Lucian's body with us, and we asked the abbot, and he agrees. I think we brought him the dress at this point. And he goes, yeah, we will begin the process of raising Lucian. When this process begins, Lucian is able to observe that those spirits have followed him, that these sort of shadowy presences are coming into this zone and seem to have an intent upon this ritual. The party detects them somehow. I don't recall exactly how they did. I think maybe Van Richten has some kind of I think the party, is metagaming aware of this, and Van Richten asks, like, can I get a tingles on the back of my neck check? And he rolls so fantastically well with such a high modifier that I say, sure, you sense that something is not right, and with your years of vampire hunting are aware that something is coming in. So they interrupt this ritual, and the abbot, having been made aware something is going on, seems to peer beyond the veil, and he seems to gain the limited ability to sense spirits in his vicinity, which allows him sort of vague communication with Lucian. And Lucian confirms, yes, I'm totally going to be okay if we stop this ceremony for now. And the abbot says, that sounds great. I'm going to banish all of the wayward spirits here from this location, such that you are the only one left. And Lucian is unable to communicate in time that there is one wayward spirit here whom he does not want to be banished.
Yeah.
The abbot seems to enforce his presence upon the space around him, and all of these shadows and Ilya with them are sent blasted out of the room, and Ilya, screaming, seems dragged by invisible forces out of the abbey.
God.
And the doors slam shut behind him, and the abbot says, "Great, now let's rest and try again." This time, we have a bit of a head start, and the ritual goes successfully. It is only at the very end of it, as Lucian is about to step into his own body, that he sees the dark spirits who have been held at bay begin to try to force their way back in. They are too late. The shadows that are coming and trying to push themselves into his body will not make it in time, and there is a new one among them, Ilya's spirit, now dark, now twisted, a malevolent version of his former self, another possible fate that can await the spirits in Barovia after death. So we have slightly more ghosty Danny Phantom for that. So we're so Lucian is back to life. You really didn't spend that long being dead. Everything is great, except that we may have given up Irina to Strahd. So we race back to Vallaki to see what has happened at the Burgomaster's mansion. The doors have been thrown off their hinges to the ground. There are hoof prints with scorch marks around them on the wooden doors. The house seems empty. It seems there have been signs of a conflict here. They are going through it and looking through the halls when all of a sudden they feel a presence looming in the doorway behind them. They spin around and, oh, it's their good friend Gadolf Blinsky. Oh, what a fright he gave them. But and action chastises me for not even giving them a perception check to know that he was there before he was suddenly behind them. Definitely an oversight on my part. Gadolf Blinsky says, "Come with me to my store. I have something I have to show you." He takes them there hurriedly. The whole town seems like quiet and diminished because it seems that Strahd was here in public and in force in their absence. But all is not lost. They go into Gadolf Blinsky's shop, and they find in a back room Ismark is recovering there, heavily injured but alive. Watching over him is a familiar face. It's Yevgeny, the wolf hunter, who is pissed off because Strahd came to Vallaki, and on his way just through looking for Irina, a number of people fell afoul of him, including Yevgeny's partner, the other wolf hunter, Soldar, was killed by Strahd in his recent incursion. But it's not all bad news. These two are here to help the party and to tell them what has happened. Shortly before Strahd arrived, the Mardikovs came to Ismark and Irina and told them that Strahd was on the way, and they had already formulated a plan. They have with them 3 horses and 3 identical cloaks. What they do is they put Irina on a horse and give her a cloak, and Erwin and Danica Mardikov each also mount a horse and wear an identical cloak. One of them rides out of Vallaki to the east, one rides out to the north, and one rides out to the west. Even Ismark does not know which of them was Irina, which direction she truly went in. And their hope is that this will also confuse Strahd and his spies. They were able to, all of them, make it out of town well before Strahd arrived. When he did, Ismark tried to buy some more time and got his ass kicked for it, but Strahd, not seeing him as a threat, did not bother to kill him. And now we don't exactly know where Irina is. There's a few directions she might have gone in. The party puts their heads together, and privately, they try to put themselves in the shoes of these 3 people, Erwin, Danica, and Irina. They decide that they would not have sent Irina to the east toward Castle Ravenloft, that probably she went in one of the other directions. So They go to Ismark and they say, Ismark, we think that Irina probably went east. And Ismark says, okay. And he, as burgomaster, summons a number of the town guard, and he will leave to the east in search of Irina, understanding that the party will search the other directions. The party does not want Ismark to get hurt. They purposefully are lying to him to send him in the opposite direction of where they think Irina is, because they know that Ismark will fight to the death to protect her, and they don't want him in the way. So we send him on a wild goose chase off in the opposite direction. Meanwhile, the party, left with two options here, thinks, well, they actually are told that, they're looking at possible routes that could have been taken, and they go, well, if Irina went to the west and she didn't run into Strahd, then we don't really know where she might have ended up. Maybe she made it to the Wizard of Wines, in which case she's okay. Maybe she went off somewhere else, but there's so many places to explore over there. She could have easily branched off. We feel better about going north, and that seems like a more of a limited location to chase down. Yevgeny is out for blood. He wants revenge for his partner's recent demise, so he volunteers to help the party track Irina, and they go together to the north. They have already... yeah, go ahead.
I think Yevgeny also alerted us officially at this point that north was werewolves, and we had just been attacked by the werewolves with Strahd, so we were like, okay, if she just goes west, then who knows, but if she went north, then that's going to be a really big fucking problem that we need to bail her out of immediately.
Oh yeah, okay, very good point. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, Yevgeny would not know exactly where the werewolf hideout is, but he would have an idea that it's roughly to the northern side of the Valley of Barovia. So with that in mind, and we've already lost a day resurrecting Lucian and healing from everything, so we feel that time is of the essence. We are racing after Irina, who is on horseback. We're following these horses' hoofprints. On our way there, we pass by Lake Zarevich, and Alan starts describing a boat. What's up?
I got a question.
Yeah.
About the Markovs. When I sent the sending, I was half expecting them to help. Because, I didn't know how much they knew about Irina, if anything. Why do you think they helped? Did they know that something... did they think, oh, Strahd's just going to kidnap a random person? Or did they think it's more important than that?
Oh, that's a good question. So you had told them about Irina just in the sending. I think they did not know about her ahead of time. They had just made up good with you. They had just gotten over this hump of, do we trust you guys or not? We're pretty fresh off of that when this happens. And it's clear from the tone in your voice that this is an extremely dire situation to you. If it had been something like, come here and help us, I think they would have been pretty had kind of reasonable expectations about how much they could actually do that. But you are asking them to help an innocent Barovian woman in their town where they live, and it sounds like this is really important to you. They are definitely putting themselves at significant risk by doing this, but it also seems like maybe something they could even get away with doing and not reveal that they are were-ravens if it goes badly. They're not, obviously using their were-raven powers to engage with this, and they have made the decision that this is maybe the make-or-break group, that you guys are the make-or-break group, that it seems like there is something extra that they don't understand going on with Irina. But at the very least, because you put them in a position where they can choose to either save this innocent woman from Strahd or not, even though it means definitely putting themselves at significant risk to do so, they decide this is the time. And they commit to it absolutely here.
Thanks.
Yeah. In more of a gameplay answer to this question as well, I decided at this point that I wanted you guys to see some other areas of Barovia, and I wanted to give you some more concrete leads to get you there because they were a little bit off the beaten track. It was clear at this point that you guys were going to be playing a lot more than Prime because Prime had to cancel so frequently. So I was kind of looking to guide you to those areas and pad out your experience a little bit more. So I was a little bummed when, we come here and I'm describing this boat and how there's a fisherman in this boat, and people are saying it was, okay, whatever, we're following these tracks. Irina's in danger. We're chasing her. She's terrible. I'm like, okay, he picks up a sack and it's wriggling and he throws it in the water. We don't give a shit about that. We don't even know why you're telling us this. So we move on. And we'll never look back. And we eventually do follow the footprints to the werewolf's lair. Shortly before arriving there, we find the horse dead, and we find bloody clothes that we recognize belong to Erwin Mardukov. So we realize at this point, okay, this was Erwin. This was not Irina. And we are guessing from the tracks that we can see that Erwin has been taken into the werewolf's lair. Do we now abandon him and go chasing after Irina, like follow another route to try to get to her faster? Or do we try to catch up to him and brave this to help him? And we decide that's what we're going to do. So we forge ahead into the werewolf's lair. This is just a big old cave full of fights. We fight a whole bunch of wolves, we fight a whole bunch of werewolves, and we're in initiative almost the entire time. Some highlights of this: we meet in one of the early chambers this woman who is finally in a humanish form and willing to talk to us. The werewolves have this pattern of kidnapping children from other realms, and this is something that the new leader has started doing. Having them fight to the death, and the winners will become members of the pack and infected with lycanthropy. Zuleika Toranescu thinks this is barbaric and horrible. She is not a super good creature, but she has a religious affiliation with Mother Night, the protector goddess of night, and she has conflicted feelings. Like a lot of the children that they kidnap are like orphans or people who didn't have a good home life wherever they were, but having them fight to the death is a step beyond, and she is not happy with the direction that the pack has been taking, especially because it used to be that her husband, Emil Toranescu, was the leader of the pack. After he mysteriously disappeared, Kirill Stoyanovich became the pack leader and said, from now on, we work directly for Strahd. Something that she doesn't care about as much, but the children thing is getting to her. She does not fight the party. She allows them to liberate the children that are captive here, and she says, I will, those who want to remain here, I will continue to care for. If any of these wish to be returned to their homes beyond this place, then I'm fine with that happening, and I will not oppose you as you go after Kirill, who is in the caverns beyond. So we learn some information about the pack dynamics, and we keep on going. We find that the caves led out onto a cliffside where a fire is burning. The pack has here, as their prisoner, Erwin Mardukov, whom they have discovered is immune to their bites and their claws. They are not silver, they are not magical, so they cannot harm him with them at all. They don't have an explanation for this, and it's extremely interesting to them, but not interesting enough that they really want to scientifically inquire it. Instead, they have done enough testing to discover that fire does hurt him. So they are preparing to burn him to death and then eat him if they can. Kirill Stoyanovich is here leading the pack. He has this prisoner. He has a child recently inducted into the pack that he commands to fight the intruders. We have a battle with him. At the end of it, he is slain. The children are all liberated, and Erwin is liberated. We're victorious. We get a little closer to our next level up.
That's some more children that we did not save.
Mm-hmm. We are here to the northwest of Lake Baratok. We've led a winding way up over here. This is kind of why whenever you guys are at the Lake Baratok Tower, you're having encounters with werewolves, because that's sort of their stomping grounds over there. And theoretically, if you'd been really interested, you could have tracked them from those encounters to their lair and had this whole section at a different point. Erwin says, yes, I fled Valaki to the north. I went west around the banks of Lake Zarevich and eventually was ambushed by the werewolves in that approximate area and brought here to their lair. My wife, Danica Mardukov, went to the east. I don't know where she is right now, but she is somewhere in the east of Barovia. Irina we sent to the west, intending that she would go to the Wizard of Wines and meet up with my father, Davian Mardukov, here. So I can't speak to exactly when this happens, and I'm ready to believe that it was at a much earlier point that would have made maybe more sense, or maybe it happens here as we're trying to confirm things. But we do a sending to Irina, trying to get a sense of where she is, and she doesn't answer it. We send another sending at this point to Davian Mardukov, or we communicate with him in some way, and he says, no, Irina never arrived here. She did not make it to the Wizard of Wines. The party starts coming down to the south, back onto the main roads again, and tries to pick up her trail. They search and they search for Irina's trail, and with the help of Yevgeny the wolf hunter, they eventually pick it up. It seems that just to the west of Vallaki, there is a place where the road splits, and her horse's hoof prints, instead of staying on the main road, turn off to the south and go along an old trail, an overgrown trail that follows the river. The sign says that this trail leads to a location known as Berez, and it seems that Irina has gone in this direction. So in the Alpha campaign, this is our reason at this time, that wasn't what I meant to do, for going to Berez. We are in pursuit of Irina coming in this direction. At the same time, in the Prime campaign, Shava, this is just after their encounter with Strahd in Vallaki, has a dream where she sees this hut in a flooded town, swamped in mists. Somebody beckons to her from inside, an old woman, and she very clearly has an association with Shava's patron, Baba Yaga.
I'd actually had this dream also earlier too, I think. I'd had like a very early house on chicken legs sort of dream that felt very much like this, but then this one was a little bit more like, ooh, this is somewhere here.
Yeah, it's very vivid, and it lasts longer, and it's more specific. And we definitely feel a beckoning call to this location, one intended for Shava in particular. So both groups come down the trail to Berez. And funnily enough, this is one of those things where, like, in real life, too, in the game, these were actually happening pretty close to the same time. It was remarkable to me how many times we were kind of hitting the same moments right on top of one another. So Alpha arrives here, and I'm going to kind of... there's kind of two sections to Berez. So one of them is Baba Lysaga, and the other one is kind of everything else. The parties actually did these in opposite orders from one another, but for the sake of things and consistency, I'm going to talk about Baba Lysaga first, and then I'm going to talk about exploring the rest of Berez. So in Alpha, we come and we approach this creeping hut, and we intrude into the front door and meet Baba Lysaga, who tells us, yes, recently a woman came here, fitting your description, and she told me her entire story. I told her of a place where she could perhaps escape Strahd, a temple on frozen Mount Gakis. In this place, she could so thoroughly corrupt her own soul that Strahd would no longer desire her, and she would no longer need to worry about her loved ones, friends, and companions dying to keep her safe. Baba Lysaga gave...
As soon as we followed her tracks off the main road, and we're like, God damn it, what the fuck is she doing? God, Irina, what the fuck? And then we go here, we meet Baba Lysaga, she says, we're like, God damn it, Irina, fucking stop it. What are you doing? You're ruining everything.
She has given Irina the instructions to a ritual that would help her reach this temple. And she has a twofold goal with this. One is that, why wouldn't you just help this innocent woman who comes here asking this question? But a more sinister goal is that she secretly wants for Strahd not to be able to fulfill a romantic relationship. We'll get into why as we discuss her a little more. In Prime, they approach Baba Lysaga and Shava comes and speaks with her. In this game, Baba Yaga has given Baba Lysaga a vision that someone with incredible power and potential would come to Barovia. Baba Lysaga has been on the lookout and believes that Shava is this person and that it is ordained by fate that Baba Lysaga mentor her and help her reach the next tier of power. But she believes that something is holding Shava back, and it's her reliance, her dependence on her frail companions. Shava cannot become truly great as long as they are holding her back. With Shava in the hut and no one else in there, everyone else is outside, the doors to the hut slam shut. It rises up on its legs, and Baba Lysaga tells Shava not to intervene while she kills all of her companions. Shava, of course, she does not plan to lay a hand upon. So
Shava goes, lol, no.
we engage into battle in both groups. I believe I had the Alpha one first, and Alpha has proven at this point that they can take on a lot of shit. So I decide that I want to give them a lot of shit here. It is something that there's a couple of ambient kind of hazards in Berez, and I wanted to include at least one of them in this fight. Something that can just happen as like a random encounter here is that zombies rise up from the swamp muck and attack you. So a few of them rise up on this battle map and engage with the Alpha party. Also, we have the Creeping Hut, which is a challenge rating 10 creature. It has a reach of something like 120 feet with its melee attacks, which are the great roots that it rips up from the earth and brings slamming down upon the party. In the first round, it crits Yevgeny and does over 40 damage. Yevgeny has had aid cast on him at a higher level, which is the only reason he is not killed outright by this, but he is knocked unconscious. The party wheels the cart around and tries to run from her, but cannot get out of the reach of the vines, which simply destroy the wagon. Hot Dog tumbles out of it and runs off into the wilderness. He has no interest in fighting this fight. He disappears into the mist, and we do not see him for a long time. Nyx casts Wall of Fire on the hut, which is on a little island of area that's not difficult terrain. It takes up almost the entirety of this island, and it is very slow. It is a hard time moving through the difficult terrain at all, and doesn't really want to get mired there. So it's kind of unavoidable that the hut gets hit multiple times by this Wall of Fire, which ends up being a lot of damage to it and catches it on fire, so it's taking damage over time as well. Seeing that it is being hit so hard, Baba Lysaga decides to putter out of the hut inside the animated skull of a giant, which is the flying craft that she uses. She cannot fly herself. Through the eye holes and the mouth holes, she shoots her spells at them. Van Richten attempts to cast Sending on her and pretends to be Strahd. And Luke, do we have you? What exactly did you say to her? I can't recall now.
Hey, I'm here. So let me start with, I didn't know anything about her motivations at the time. So I just talked as if I was Strahd, and I was annoyed at her that she was trying to fight my little pets, like my little pet experiment. Like, just, you don't know what you're doing, you're stupid, stop it. That kind of attitude towards her.
Yeah.
And failed the deception check, I guess, and persuasion. I forget which one we had to roll.
Yeah, I had you make a deception check for this, which unfortunately she does beat it with her insight check. But we were sussing out here that Baba Lysaga does have a very precarious emotional relationship with Strahd. We don't quite have the substance of it yet, but this was a really interesting try, and I think if you'd had just a little bit more information, you might have been able to phrase something that would have been more effective, and I really would have had to seriously consider if maybe not ending the fight, but certainly giving her a debilitation or a reason why maybe it would cut off early if you did enough damage to her or survived enough of her attacks. But unfortunately, we have to push on through it. She cloud kills the party, which does a lot of damage and really affects where they can stand. But the party destroys all the zombies. Also, at this point, the swarms of ravens that were in the creeping hut have escaped, and they are attacking Baba Lysaga in the air. Finally, we destroy her skull she is flying around in. She falls to the ground. We destroy the hut. And with her on the ground, we run up to her, and with melee attacks, we kill her. Alpha is victorious. Despite having zombies in their fight, which are not at all present in the Prime fight. I decided we were going to try to hit a faster pace with Prime a little bit, and we are not going to necessarily have additional things like that. Also, it felt really close with Alpha, and that was with them pumping temporary hit points all the time from Duncan. So
close.
I decided...
And also a significant portion of the Prime fight, we were down me. So we were like down a person.
Yes. Shava is inside Baba Lysaga's hut, and something that I did do, because I made these other adjustments to make it easier on Prime, is then I was a goofy DM and thought, well, let's have Baba Lysaga come out immediately. Let's not have her spend a lot of time in her hut awkwardly interacting with Shava. She will come out, and she and the hut will be fighting side by side pretty much immediately. But that actually kind of opened up things to be a little easier in a way, because she makes the mistake of leaving Shava alone in her hut. And Shava has been paying a lot of attention to what's been going on recently. She knows that when the Wizard of Wines was raided, 2 magical green gemstones were stolen. One of them was taken by the Druids to Yester Hill, where they used it to attempt to animate the Tree Blight Winter Splinter, something Shava barely prevented with her own hands. She knows that the other gem was given to scarecrows and taken into the swamp, and she has figured out from the scarecrows here that it was Baba Lysaga who it was delivered to, and she can see the green glow beneath the floorboards of the creeping hut. She pushes through the floorboards, opening them up, and alone inside the creeping hut, with no one else able to see this, manages to grasp the green crystal at the hut's heart and wrenches it out. It collapses with her inside. She would have taken a lot of damage from this, but as soon as she takes like a little bit of any damage, she negotiates with me, she uses her reaction to invisibly misty step out of the hut.
So we are missing a step here.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Specific. I don't even know if I remember if I was the one who pulled it out, because
It was
I
Cinder,
started digging around other places, including a chest that seemed magical, because I had my like always on see magic.
Gotcha.
And I opened up the chest and instantly got hit by I want to say a fireball and some hands jumping out at me.
Yep, there was a trap on the chest that you opened.
And so there was significant ouchies, including, I believe, a fireball, and because that was my, I was like, oh wait, I'm gonna die if I get hit by those hand things. Oh wait, teleport out. So I'm invisible, the hut's on fire, and Baba Lysaga freaks out that I'm dead.
I also used my really cool anti-plant axe.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I told you she used it.
I just hacked at that dang hut and like cut the.
I'm pretty sure you ghosted inside of it too, or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were trying to remember
I
this.
think it was Cinder who cut her way in and grabbed out the...
I felt like I remembered that, but I wasn't sure, and we couldn't agree on it, and we didn't have Taylor for this part of the recap, so we couldn't 100% remember. But that all sounds right to me, actually. Yeah. So we're able to actually chase down this hut pretty quickly, because we're able to smash our way into the point. Yeah, Cinder has got this ability now for like one round. She can walk into the ethereal plane and it basically lets her walk through one wall at this point. So she uses it to walk into the hut. We do a bunch of damage, and then wrench the heart out. And I guess Cinder, then walks out of it somehow. So the hut is collapsed behind Baba Lysaga. It appears to have completely crushed Shava, who is nowhere in sight. She is actually pretty distraught about this. This was not something she wanted at all to happen. And she decides that she's going to absolutely unleash arcane fury on the rest of the party. It is clear that Godfrey is the buffest character in the bunch. So she uses her highest level spells and just absolutely destroys him. His body is ruined, and he falls dead again to the ground. What's up?
Hey, Alan.
Yeah.
I can't remember, and I wasn't there for the recap, so I'm sorry, but at what point in this interaction, did Baba have a baby that was crying? Because I remember that we really agonized over what to do about that baby for like a while.
Yeah, that's right.
Right at the beginning, when we went into the hut, we were like, ooh, why is she like have a child and like is rocking it and whatnot? And I think we were able to determine it was like a hole to blow was magic.
Yeah.
We were pretty sure that there was not a normal child there.
Yeah, I think the crib is real, but she has created an illusion around it that there is a baby inside. This is her memory of Strahd from when she was Strahd's midwife and nanny. And she casts for herself this illusion to give herself the feeling that Strahd still depends on her and needs her care. So we aren't sure the whole time whether that's a real baby or what the fuck is going on with that. But then the hut collapses and she seems really angry. She starts raining down extremely powerful area effect spells. They have Ismark with them. He has joined Prime for this after his sister was kidnapped. He decides he's going to come along. So he is bloodied. Flint is bloodied. Cinder is fully knocked out. And Tox is hiding underneath Esmeralda's wagon in the swamp muck, firing spells whenever he can.
If I remember correctly, I teleported out and I pretty immediately got hit by whatever Baba Lysaga threw.
Yeah, she's like, how could Shava be killed? No! And then she fireballs and it toasts Shava really hard, and she has no idea.
And then I turned not invisible and I'm just there and it's like, oops.
Yeah, we are able to destroy Baba Lysaga's skull, and she falls to the ground, but she is not bloodied. She is not close to bloodied, and half the party is bloodied or unconscious, but Baba Lysaga is extremely distraught. She's really going through it, which is when suddenly Shava leaves invisibility directly in front of her and makes a persuasion check to try to get her to calm down, and absolutely nails it. Baba Lysaga has 85 hit points left at this moment, but has absolutely lost the spiritual battle. Seeing that Shava is not in fact dead, and being asked, and I think that we at this point have kind of got a sense of what's going on with Baba Lysaga, that once upon a time she was Strahd's midwife and his nanny, that she cared for him in his youth in a way that his mother never did. As queen of a nation, Queen Ravenovia was not really present for a lot of Strahd's upbringing, and he really desired to impress her and be close to her much more than he was, and kind of took for granted Baba Lysaga, who actually cared for him, and she really resented that and took in a lot of bitterness because of it. And she took on this life in Barovia, this cursed life. She learned these arcane ways of extending her own existence through ritual blood sacrifice, so that she could continue to be close to him in the hopes that one day there would be no one else left, only her and him, and he would finally have to depend on her once again. Shava kind of makes her realize how sad her existence is, that she is constantly needing other people to depend on her, including Shava in a way in this circumstance, kind of filling that role as well. And Baba Lysaga just kind of is broken, and she very briefly tells the party how to find everything that they will need to know to move forward, and she wanders off into the mists of Berez, and it will be a long time before we see her again.
I think I remember that I said I would come back. Like, let us do this thing. Like, there's still things that I can learn from you, but, like, not like this. this is not doing this will not. I will not come back. But it's like, let's calm down.
And to an extent, you would keep that promise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
she's bad in our game, so I got her spell book.
Yep.
Another news.
Woo! Yeah. Very different outcomes.
We also had a kind of a weird interaction with her because, like, we came into Berez and there were scarecrows, and I action immediately opened fire on the scarecrows, which was the correct thing to do. And then once we saw a building with someone living in it, all of a caution went out, and I walked up and like knocked on the door. I was like, "Excuse me, ma'am, I'm sorry to bother you. Have you seen a woman?" And then there was the baby crying, and we were like, "Huh, that's weird." Barovian stuff. Whack whack.
Yeah.
Well, I think we later on, like after the fight, went back and investigated into that more.
Yes, because because the hut just kind of like fell over, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. We're able to pick through the wreckage, and it kind of gives us the little nuggets that we need to move forward. So that will kind of come in when we leave Berez. But to talk about the town as a whole, we have this other separate area. So beside Baba Lysaga, there's also the exploration of Berez, which gives us the history of this town, which is that centuries ago, there was a woman here named Marina that Strahd became obsessed with. He clearly was planning to take her back to his castle and force her to be a companion of his, and people kind of know what goes on in the castle. Like, she's going to be transformed into an undead, immortal horror. The townspeople so love her in their own way that they decide that to kill her would be better than allowing her to suffer such a fate. She is murdered by the burgomaster, and in revenge, Strahd floods the town of Berez and kills everyone within it as a message to the rest of Barovia. What happens when you oppose him? They are able to speak with the ghost of the burgomaster. We are able to find a statue erected in her memory, which names her as Marina, but it bears a striking resemblance to Irina Kolyana. It is, in fact, Strahd who erected this statue out of mourning, as he believed at the time that this was a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence. Like, what were the possible odds? He saw a woman with the face of a woman he had loved who died, and doesn't know at the time how this could be possible, but what a miracle that it was so focused on making her his that he didn't see this coming, that the people of Berez would rip her out of his grasp. So he thinks that this was his one chance at happiness that was gone forever. And it isn't until he sees Irina centuries later that he begins to hope that maybe this is something that could happen again, that in fact his chance is not denied him. Also, while Prime is exploring Berez, Godfrey comes back. Because Godfrey is, of course, a revenant, which means that when he is destroyed, his soul goes and finds another corpse and animates that corpse. So a corpse kind of shambles out of the swamp, and it's not quite as heroic looking as Godfrey was before, but it still has his charming British accent and his vim and vigor and his ideals. So, you know, we'll make do with what we can. Yeah, there's like kind of stuff dripping out of him at all times, but you know, our relationship with him isn't just surface level. We love him for who he is, and man, did he tank a lot of damage for us in that Baba Lysaga fight.
Yeah, we loved him for who he is and all the radiant spells he can cast.
Yeah.
Really.
And that hasn't changed, so. Yeah, it's at this point that I think both parties kind of start to realize what the whole story is with Irina. I think there were a lot of things pointing to it beforehand, but this is really starting to bring things into focus for both groups. So like Dr. Flint's idea that maybe Irina was a daughter or descendant of Strahd is kind of dispelled by this revelation. I do kind of wonder what all ideas people had before they got here, and to what extent did people maybe suspect something like this? Like, how out of left field was this? Because this is like a big plot point in Curse of Strahd, and I think one that, you know, if people are spoiled for stuff, like, this is a pretty easy one to be spoiled. So I'm curious what people's experience around this plot point was.
Well, I've seen The Mummy,
Mm.
and I've seen a lot of, actually, Bram Stoker's Dracula. A lot of vampire and immortal stories do she's the reincarnation of my dead girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I didn't find it that shocking.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised to find out that there was any legitimacy to it. I was just playing action. I'm like, okay, I don't care. He's a crazy vampire. He's obsessed with his girl. That's useful to me in some way. And then it's like, oh, she actually is like a weird reincarnation. Okay, well, doesn't change anything. Doesn't really actually change what we're doing here.
Especially because the original girl didn't love him. Like, at no point... Oh, my power keeps blinking. Fortunately, my Wi-Fi is on a battery. At no point has this woman's soul, in any incarnation, ever loved him.
Yeah, there was no possibility of being like, hey, maybe you guys want to like try like a date? Try like, I mean, have you really tried? No.
Yeah. All right.
Alan is gone forever.
No, I'm here. I'm just patiently listening. Yeah. All right.
I'm surprised, but like it was definitely like in the list of like, okay, she's related, or like is of his line somehow, or like maybe like a reincarnation sort of thing. Like there was we'd hit the list and it was definitely on the list. But the way it was revealed was actually pretty good. So it's like, okay, all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, statue, ghost in the what you call in the mansion, like oh boy.
I have a quick question that's not entirely related, but where is Irina from? Like, I know she's adopted, but like, who are her parents? Where did she come from?
Oh yeah, do we want to talk about this now? Yeah, why not? Because at no point did any group figure out the answer to this in-game, and I imagine it's been burning a hole in everybody's chest. Also, people might be wondering, what the heck was up with Izek Strasny? And why was he having these Irina dreams?
That one always bothered me.
Yeah, nobody ever learned that in either campaign. Do we want to...
That didn't bother me. I just assumed everybody was a simp for her. I was like, oh, well, yeah.
No, but that was a magic one.
Yes, he was a simp, but he had extremely detailed information that was like, what's going on?
She's the only non-gray woman in the whole area.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about that is that Izek Strasny is actually not simping for Irina in the way that you might think. He does not feel a romantic or sexual attraction to her in any way. It's far from his mind. He is obsessed with her and fascinated with her in a way that feels much deeper within him, that he has a hard time articulating or understanding because he doesn't have a soul. But the truth is that he's been having dreams about her since he was a child. And in these dreams, he sees her grow older as he does, and sees her happy and sad and excited and lonely, and go through all the different seasons of her life and all these different outfits. And he is so stunted emotionally and in terms of communication, he absolutely cannot begin to talk about this with anybody. He also just doesn't have any relationships like that. So the only way he can kind of process what he's going through, he's determined, is to try to make it manifest in the real world as like something he can fixate on. He really doesn't understand this. And so that is why he's been having these dolls made for years now, is to try to understand who this woman could be and what's happening. And at no point in either campaign, because both parties are so careful about this, does he see her in real life before he is killed prematurely by various bullshits. And so he never has the revelation of this woman he has dreamed about his entire life suddenly standing in front of him.
Hooray!
Why is he having dreams about her?
Well, that's a really good question. So we finish up with Berez, and we are given kind of the same nugget.
Wait, we also get the green gem.
Yeah.
We got the green gem, and then Lucian picked the lock of the treasure chest, and then a hand jumped out and went into her orifices.
Yeah.
Yes, in my ears and my nose. Dirty little fingers again.
I actually have in my notes that it gave you a purple nurple.
It's in my notes as well. Thank you.
Well, my notes are your notes.
And because of that, we decided that he deserved to get the luck stone that was in there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's where the luck stone comes from. That's probably why we gave it to Shava at first.
We have received from Baba Lysaga the ritual steps to complete some kind of ceremony at a stone circle east of Berez across the river. She gives us in Alpha the same instructions that she gave Irina. So we know that Irina has ostensibly gone already to this stone circle and done this ritual. And we are trying to follow in her footsteps to see what it did. I think in Prime, it's kind of given the same sort of framework around it. Like, this is something that you should go and do Shava as a way of, like, expanding your power, and also it is the next step in your quest. So both parties are heading here. In Alpha, which again, I'm trying to pad out a little bit because it's becoming clear that they're going to play a lot more than Prime, and I'm trying to keep them a little more equivalent. I decided we're going to settle some unfinished business. Associates of Baba Lysaga, as they are approaching this area to begin this ritual, appear out of the air, and they say, time for us to finish what we started. And also with Baba Lysaga dead, we are the top dog witches in Barovia, and that will be doubly true once we kill you. This is round 2 with the trio of hags from Old Bone Grinder, a chance for Alpha, now that they are not level 3, to come back at this and give it the old college try. And also, if I were pulling any punches before with their lightning bolts and phantasmal killers and such like, I certainly don't have to do that now. The party focuses Morgantha, the leader of the coven, which is a very interesting decision. It makes sense because she is their leader. Her stat block is the same. I think she has more hit points slightly than the other two. But after a fierce battle, we kill her, whereupon the other two members go, "Hooray! Now we don't have our evil mother telling us what to do," and they leave. And that is...
Prime encounters none of this.
And Prime encounters none of this. Those two will leave Barovia at the earliest opportunity, because man, does it suck here. So, both parties conduct this ritual at this stone circle. For both parties, one thing that it does is exactly the same, which is that it teleports them to the next location that I wanted them to go to, and I did not want to talk about all the time it would take and all the things they would see while driving their slow-ass carts there, so I decided that the stone circle would teleport you to the next place where things could happen, which turns out to be slightly different places for the two groups, but but only slightly. Something else that it does is something that I work into the Prime campaign, because we're following Shava being a disciple of Baba Yaga. The thing about Alpha and Prime that distinguishes them from my sister's campaign, which had 3 druids, is that these parties have no druids. And this stone circle has a druid-specific benefit where if you perform a ritual in the middle of it, whenever you wild shape, your wild shape has maximum hit points instead of the number of hit points given in the bestiary entry. It offers no other benefit for any other class. And in my desperation, I think, okay, the closest thing I have to a druid in either party is Shava, who follows this patron of fate and the occult, who could be expected perhaps to have ancient black stone circles in creepy areas that do weird things when you do rituals. So I instead give Shava the ability to maximize a spell, I think, once per week? Was that it? Something like that. You can do maximum damage with a spell. Once in, not crazy often, but enough that it's a tool in your arsenal to do. So we've got that in our pocket. And the circle blusts us away to our next locations. So, and by the way, in Alpha specifically, they leave Yevgeny in their cart outside the circle in case it turns out whatever it does is super bad and awful. So when they are teleported, Yevgeny is left behind and has to find his way back on his own to civilization with their cart, which is something that I just thought was really great.
He's with Drusilla. He's
got the horse with him. This guy who's been burned by this party, had his friend killed, now has to just find his way home on his own. So Prime has not yet gone to Salenka Pass. So the stone circle teleports them here, outside of the green flame. Appearing on this mountain pass, they look behind them, and a lone figure, cloaked, is struggling up the trail behind them. This is not Viktor Velakovich, but it is Casimir, the Dusk Elf, who has a bit of a tale to tell them, explaining why he is here. He corroborates what Rahadin told Esmeralda to an extent when Rahadin led Esmeralda away. It is indeed true that Van Richten was taken prisoner by the Vistani, and that the Dusk Elves decided to help him escape. What happened after that is that Casimir was able to escape the Vistani. The other Dusk Elves were imprisoned by the Vistani for their betrayal, but he was able to make it out and has decided to set off on a pilgrimage that he has been thinking about for some time, that he would on foot make his winding way up Mount Gakis, because he knows about this place called the Amber Temple, and there is a particular power that he hopes to attain there because he has a particular purpose for that power. He is a wizard. He has the exact same stats that Viktor Velakovich has, and he will be the party's guide to the Amber Temple if he can make it there. He wears a ring of warmth, which keeps him supernaturally warm as we go through these frosty conditions. I think we simply dispel the green flame and walk through it. And I had canonized...
I get burned. I know I burn.
Yeah, I think one person walks through to, like, see how much damage it is. Maybe, does everybody just walk through it?
Yeah, maybe I'll just roll, like, ant damage, ow.
Yeah. I mean, really, the purpose of this flame is to try to make sure that you're not here before you're high enough level to be here. That some chump trying to walk through will immediately get a message like, okay, we'll come back to this later. But Prime are a bunch of stands now. They've knocked down Baba Lysaga. We're like level 8 or something, so we're going to struggle up through this. And so they do not trigger the Vrox, who are turned to stone atop the wall. We never have that encounter. They do spend the night in the little tower here, which Alpha has not done yet at this point. So during the night, they're attacked by all these horrible snow ghost maidens, and we are able to survive them and keep going. We then encounter the rock of Mount Gakis, who swoops down at us. Godfrey is grappled by the rock, who throws him out over the canyon, but casts lightning lure and pulls him 10 feet closer, which is enough for the party to grab him and pull him to safety. They shoot the rock with a whole bunch of massive damage. They're at like level 8. They have Casimir who can cast Fireball. So they deal a whole bunch of damage to the rock. It does a whole bunch of damage to them, but it retreats first. It flies off into the canyon. And
only after it drops Hellbender.
Oh yes, Hellbender is destroyed.
He does throw Hellbender first.
Mm-hmm. Which, Hellbender gets destroyed a lot in this campaign, so I apologize for all the times I'll blip over that. But I promise it was always extremely satisfying. We start to climb Mount Gakkus. The beginning of the ascent up Mount Gakkus is where I teleported Alpha to, because we already did all that Solinka Pass shit, and we don't need to do it again. The point is to get you to Mount Gakkus. We struggle up a horrible, frozen, very dangerous place and arrive outside the Amber Temple. Something I want to keep in mind as we talk about the Amber Temple, something that's going to be very important, is that the two parties are here for different reasons. Prime has been told by Casimir that there is ancient secret knowledge here. There is power to be gained here that must be discovered. And they are wondering, perhaps, is there kind of secret here to the Curse of Strahd, or some way to free him or destroy him? Is there some kind of like pivotal knowledge here that we could attain? And our companions in exploring this place...
Also, we're saving Esmeralda.
Yes, we know at this point from what Casimir has told us that Rahadin is actually bad news. He hears the description of this guy and goes, oh shit, we have to get there as fast as we can. Your friend is in tremendous danger. So we are here in search of her. We have Casimir and Godfrey as our companions at this point, helping us to delve into the temple. Alpha is here because we know that Irina has been sent here. We've heard people talk about dark gifts, like I think Baba Lysaga mentioned dark gifts. This was something around what she wanted Irina to do. And we've heard people discuss the Amber Temple as a place of ancient secrets, but we don't know much more about it than that. Our direct stated purpose is to find Irina here and save her. We take a little bit of a rest outside the Amber Temple here. Peregrine casts Rope Trick, which creates an extra dimensional space that's very difficult to notice, and they climb inside of it. It's like a cozy pad. While they are in there, a figure on horseback arrives in the snows outside the temple, has been following their route up the mountain, and comes to a stop here. They have a whispered conversation about who the hell that could be, which this character seems to overhear and calls out into the air like, who is there? I don't see anybody. They decide to introduce themselves, and he introduces himself as Rahadin. And I honestly don't remember why he said he was here. What did he tell you guys?
I think, okay, I'm not 100% sure. I'm guessing that he was trying to save somebody. I think he was straight up lying to us.
Oh, you know what? He said, yes, there's this missing Vistani girl that That's I and the other Dusk Elves have been looking for. Maybe she made it here.
That's it.
And we look at him and we go, this is a trustworthy guy. Absolutely, we can allow him, as he suggests, to enter the temple with us. And he will help us explore it and fight whatever dangers come here. It's probably not a big deal that he says not to get too close to him.
No, okay, hold on. Action and Rictavio are like, we have no choice but to act like we're nice to you, but we don't believe you. Everyone else is like, hey.
I don't have enough to just kill you on sight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
And then we thought it was funny to then pretend like he was the most trustworthy guy.
Yeah.
I was wondering if anybody recognized him from my description, because I made sure to describe Rahadin, although I don't know that I showed you his art back then, shortly before Daniel went missing. That you knew it was out of character, that it was a Dusk Elf wearing a sheepskin cloak, but I wasn't sure if years later that this Dusk Elf wearing a sheepskin cloak, that you would realize that this is who it was.
No, Alex, Alan, it had been years, actually, in real life.
Yeah, no, you're right.
We also had not, I don't think that we saw his art the Daniel time.
I don't think so.
No, we didn't.
Yeah.
I would have remembered that face.
I just had certain keywords that I tried to use, and I tried to make his voice the same, but I didn't really expect that you would, and it would have, I think, only punished you, because, again, you didn't have a specific reason to distrust him, and if out of character you'd known what a motherfucker he was, then I would have expected you to sit on that and steam, which is honestly what I was hoping for, so you dodged that by not knowing who he was.
I was steaming all right.
Yeah. So actually, I'm reading a note here. In Alpha, he says, "Oh, Casimir sent me to help you. Casimir somehow knew you were here and sent me a Dusk Elf to aid you." And this is weird and suspicious, but we don't have enough to combat it at the time. Something else that I'm going to cover here, I don't remember exactly when this happens, but this is the point where I want to make sure to talk about it. At a certain point, Action and Rudolf and Richten compare their backstories. They discuss their pasts. Action tells his backstory, which Jack shared with us in a prior session of this recap, that his entire family was killed by a lich who sacrificed them in order to extend its own lifespan. It was going to do the same to Action, had gotten as far as burning his eyes out of his head before a party of adventurers saved Action. Rudolf van Richten reveals something that he had realized some time ago and is only sharing now. He was a member of that party. He is one of the people who saved Action back then. We have a shared history and a shared near fanatical grudge against liches. So
he realized that I haven't seen anyone else in my entire life with those same eyes, and I asked, "Hey, where are you from?" And then the stories matched up.
Yeah. So, establishing that, into the temple. In the temple, I'm going to talk about some things maybe out of order for your party, but again, it's for the sake of talking about one location once and just comparing what the parties did different in that location. So we come in different doors as different parties, or maybe we try one door and then we try another one or whatever. We're going to talk about this crack that leads into a room where a bunch of wilderfolk, mountain people, have made camp. They are sort of a sister tribe to the wilderfolk that we fought on Yester Hill. These are more of like a proud warrior hunter people who brave Mount Gakis in the more extreme conditions. They are descendants of the tribe that Kavan once led in life. So when we encounter them, Kavan reaches out to them telepathically, maybe before or maybe after. A bunch of them have been killed by the party rushing in and throwing a bunch of fireballs and doing a bunch of stabs and stuff like that. Speaking their language telepathically, they revere him. They recognize this blood spear as an ancient symbol of their tribe. And Kavan, being wielded by a member of the party, convinces these people to submit to the party and work alongside them. In Alpha, we have killed a bunch of these berserkers because we heard they were in there. They sounded like some motherfuckers. We decided to soften up the room with some fireballs, and there's only a few left by the time Kavan is inside the room and capable of reaching out to them and establishing this peace. Prime, alternately, I think gets the whole group. I think they approach it a little more diplomatically and are able to get Cinder in a little quicker, and we have a whole bunch of berserkers, including this gladiator. She has over 100 hit points. She has a shield. She has 3 attacks. She is a real beast. And they seem to align themselves with the party. They're hesitant to explore this ancient cursed temple. They were just planning to take shelter in this one sort of side chamber. But if the champion with the blood spear says that they should do it, then they're game to give it a try. In Alpha, this was something that I left in here that I think I took out for Prime. In Alpha, they have a direwolf with them, and it is just straight out killed by the initial fireballs. So when Nyx goes in there, she revives it, as a undead monstrosity who will be her best friend and names it Cookie. And this will be our companion too. Both parties fight some flame skulls. It's a rip-roaring good time. And both parties look out into the main chamber, perhaps from different perspectives. So for Alpha gets a little bit of a different experience coming in here because Alpha has, before coming into the main chamber of the Amber Temple, made a whole bunch of noise directly beforehand. So when they walk in, and Action, who, I don't know if you guys knew this, he has 120 feet dark vision and can see through supernatural or magical darkness. He can see, because of this fantastic range, and because it can see through magical darkness, he needed both of those things. He can see into the hood of the giant statue of a faceless god at the other end of this chamber. There is magical darkness filling the inside of the hood, and he can see that there is a creature inside. Because that creature has heard the party coming, as a safety measure, it has adopted a form that looks like this. And Action goes, oh. And he walks forward and kind of waves his hand and he goes like, hello, we're here like exploring. What's up with you? And this creature realizes that Action can fully see it through the magical darkness 120 feet away. And, ooh, that's a problematic ability. We really would have rathered people didn't know we were here, if possible. You know what? We're just gonna, we have this disguise, but we're at an awkward range to try to do something with it. Let's just go ahead and kick things off. Clapping the hands together, rubbing them together, chain lightning. Which was not perhaps the reaction that Action was hoping for from this person. And we back up from that pretty hurriedly. Prime does not make a whole bunch of noise right before coming in. And the creature in the faceless statue does not have the chance to adopt this disguise before Shava, who, I don't know if you guys know this, has 120 feet of magical dark vision, looks and sees this creature. And so has much more of a sense of, oh, okay, there's something bad up in there. That seems like
also we got a
probably
full
not a
long
friend.
rest up there. It was great.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah. But when Prime looks into the central chamber, also, things are quite a bit different for them. And I'm going to try to paint the picture one ingredient at a time. In the middle of the chamber, on the floor, there is a metal fortress. It is 20 feet by 20 feet and like 40 feet tall, and it looks pretty much exactly like this. Outside of it are two creatures. One of them is very clearly unconscious, and the other one is standing over her, and we recognize both of them. There is someone apparently inside this fortress, and Rahadin is threatening Esmeralda with death, trying to get them to open the door, but whoever's inside is calling his bluff. And they're at a stalemate that is broken by the party intruding. We kick off into a big ol' rumpus fight. We have all these berserkers with us. We have like all the berserkers. They charge forward down towards this fortress. Chain lightning comes out, and almost all of them are almost immediately killed. Oh man, if you can ever be a dungeon master, give yourself some red shirts and a lot of area affected damage. It's an experience like no other. But Raheen is on the back foot here. He's got the protection of the creature up in the statue, and he is going to try for like one round to like throw some darts at the party as they come forward. He has really good stealth and is able to use this fortress to shield himself from them, but it becomes clear that there's a lot of members of this party and they're going to push forward after him. They are hell-bent on saving Esmeralda, so he is going to begin to flee. He knows of a secret door behind the faceless statue that goes up into a library. He is going to run for that in the hopes of escaping, but I have made a dreadful mistake. It's not something that I could have avoided reasonably, because I put Casimir in this situation, and they have described Rahadin to Casimir, and Casimir has told them his name. He says, I know who you're talking about. That's Rahadin. He is not a friend of mine. He is the worst guy in the world. and the party is prepared for him when they arrive here. And something unbeknownst to me is that Derek has been reading a whole bunch of fucking D&D source books, and he has found this 4th level spell. What's it called, Derek?
Shoot.
Psychic.
I forgot it.
Psychic Lance or something like that.
I cast gun.
Yeah. So we've already encountered, we've already used Psychic Lance, which is what I'm going to keep calling it, whether that's right or not. We've used it a couple times. It's a 4th level spell, and my understanding of it at this point is that I have to do an intelligence save or take 7d6 damage and be stunned for 1 round.
I really thought this was the first time it was used.
It could have been. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe we've been using other, like Phantasmal Force, and I've been thinking about that up until now. But he busts this out, and something he informs me about the spell, because he asks, like, can I see Rahadin? And I say, no. Rahadin, unbeknownst to Tox, has run around behind the statue of the Faceless God, stealthed very well, hidden as a bonus action, and is about to open a secret door and escape farther back into the temple and eventually get away, because there's a teleportation circle back there that he knows how to use to get back to Castle Ravenloft. Tox says, well, it says here that if I speak the name of my target, as long as they are within 120 feet, I don't need line of sight to target them with this spell. So I just shout out Rahadin, and he has to make an intelligence saving throw. Rahadin is really good intelligence, but he doesn't have proficiency in that saving throw, and he has to roll a d20. So he fails the save. And he is stuck out in the open, stunned, having taken 7d6 psychic damage behind the statue of the Faceless God, which lets a character reach him. A character who is extremely pissed off that all of her berserkers have just been killed by chain lightning. She has 3 attacks, and she has advantage on Rahadin because he's stunned, and any attack that she hits with is a critical hit. She hits him 3 times with her spear and with her shield. Goes around. It's Tox's turn again. He casts Psychic Lance again. Rahadin fails his save again. Cinder reaches him with her greatsword. I had so many plans for Rahadin to be the Chamberlain of Castle Ravenloft, and you had already met him. He was like a foreshadowed villain. You would understand what a motherfucker he was, but under Strahd's supervision, he would have to be coy. He'd have to be professional. You could tell that he really wanted to kill you, and you really wanted to kill him, but he'd be forced to go around doing butler things until finally the tension overflowed. But instead, he's just fucked to death. Except not to death, because they knock him out and take him prisoner. Something that has developed in this fight that gathers their attention as they're collected here is that in response to all the chaos and the noise, a creature has appeared. And they would rather not deal with this if they don't have to. This is clearly a motherfucker. And also, we still have a horrible jackal thing up there raining spells down upon us.
Oh, I haven't seen that art.
Yeah, I just found this while doing the slideshow. So
I think it was just me and the fox trading things from a distance. Like I was Eldritch blasting it, and it kept throwing things out, and I kept hiding in my little invisibility shtick I could do.
Yep.
Back and forth.
But we've got a lot of pressure. The door to the fortress opens, and the man inside calls out, "Quickly, come in here, take shelter." And everybody piles inside. The man who erected this shelter, which he tells you is an instant fortress. It's a magic item, a little metal cube that when you say a certain word and put it on the ground, it expands into this shelter. This man is Rudolf van Richten, whom they have previously met as Rictavio. This is their first time meeting him in his true form. He has lost his hat of disguise. He was taken by the Vistani, so they meet him for who he really is. And he has something that he thinks will interest them. He has the Tome of Strahd, which the party gains at this time. I did a lot of work here because you may remember me talking at the very beginning. For both parties, they drew cards that said that the Tome of Strahd is in Castle Ravenloft. And I knew I would have you guys going in there at the end of the game, and I really wanted you to have the Tome of Strahd before that. Prime drew a card that said that the Tome of Strahd would be in a fortress within a fortress, hidden behind fire, which the book intends to be the instant fortress that is inside Strahd's vault, which is hidden behind a secret door behind a fireplace. But while they were walking through green fire in Selenka Pass, Sparky says, hey, do you think this is the fire that our card was talking about? And I went, ooh. And I put a fortress inside the Amber Temple and used that as a flimsy excuse to give you the tome early so that we could be having this conversation now instead of after our final battle with Strahd, which takes place in his vault, the cards have determined. So
it was honestly awesome to have the instant fortress in the middle of the temple. That like created a cool like focal point and like a safe zone that was right under the eyes of the jackal. So it was cool.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
Well, we'll see what happens.
It was nice for a while. We do hit a point here with Prime where I realize that I fucked up. And it kind of comes upon me all of a sudden. You see, we have found Rudolf Inrichten and reunited him at the same time with his apprentice, his protege, Esmeralda d'Avenir, whom we revived from unconsciousness. Rahadin had hoped to kill two birds with one stone, take out both of them, use Esmeralda to get to the Amber Temple, to perhaps gain Van Richten's trust long enough to dispatch them both. It's turned on his head, and they're both totally okay. We also have with us at least one surviving berserker. I think maybe one. And our gladiator, who is still alive and well, and they are squeezed in here with us. We also have both Casimir and the unconscious prisoner Rahadin, and Casimir's immediately saying, why did you take him prisoner? Kill him. While he is unconscious, stab him to death right now, and is even willing to take his blade to try to do it himself. Meanwhile, Shava is looking out the windows of this fortress for our little friend up in the statue to see if he's still there. We don't see him, but it's because he has turned invisible. He is still sitting in the exact same spot listening to everything that happens. In this pressure group of all these characters, including the party, we also have Ismark in here, who I think is on this slide, and because I fucked up my animations, will appear later. But Ismark is here too. It's really crowded here. He's over here on the left. It's really crowded. Casimir is trying to just kill Rahadin. Esmeralda is shouting at she's like, you, and he's like, you. And there's too much going on. And Godfrey, who is also in here, goes, okay, everybody calm down. Ismark, okay, now you're here. He goes, so Casimir does legitimately try to kill Rahadin, and the party almost lets it happen. Godfrey intervenes and separates the two of them. As a lawful good paladin, he's not going to allow this to go down. We hear out the histories of these two characters. Once upon a time, shortly after Strahd became a vampire, Casimir's sister Petrina, also a dusk elf, really seemed to fancy Strahd. And it seemed like they might have a budding relationship between the two of them. The Dusk Elves really did not want Petrina to engage with Strahd, and they took a similar tack on this that the Burgomaster of Berez did. Rather than allow Petrina to fall into Strahd's clutches, they believe perhaps that she has been seduced by his vampire wiles. They stone her to death. As punishment, Strahd sends Rahadin to the Dusk Elves. He kills every female Dusk Elf and cuts off Casimir's ears and condemns the male Dusk Elves who orchestrated the stoning to live in loneliness without the companionship of the women forever after. So this is the history that Casimir and Rahadin have. It is why Casimir is on site with Rahadin, who is just sort of coldly contemptuous of Casimir. Casimir admits that his purpose in coming to the Amber Temple is to accept a dark gift. He believes there is a power here that will allow him to resurrect the ancient dead, even though Petrina has been dead for something like 400 years. He thinks that with this gift, he could return her to life. He has gone near mad over the years with shame at his own actions, and he believes this is his only path to redemption. We're not loving either of them for this, but Rahadin is clearly the worse egg. So we make plans to tie him up and keep him in a corner, and we're just going to resolve to keep him prisoner and out of the way of things. We consider mining him for information, but Casimir says anything he would say would be a lie, and he's enough of an unknown entity and enough of an obvious devious shithead that we don't really know that we would trust anything that he would say. So we kind of put a pin in that for now. Something that at this point both groups kind of get into, this is like an early experience for both groups in the temple, is we wander over into the bottom, into the lower floor left side of the temple, and we start to get into the idea of these amber sarcophagi. Casimir has told Prime's party that the purpose of the Amber Temple is that it was built long ago by good-aligned wizards who sought to keep prisoner ancient evil gods who were like killed or destroyed but left some vestige of themselves behind, that these godlike dark entities have been imprisoned here in perpetuity. Alpha starts to, I don't remember if they are told this outright by anybody, but they, Nyx in particular, starts to hear the whispering of voices. Nyx, with her necromantic predilections, is especially sensitive to the whisperings of these evil gods who sort of tantalize her toward an open amber vault, which both parties discover. In these amber vaults, each one has 3 amber sarcophagi in which these vestiges are mummified. This one in particular, with the door busted open, one of the sarcophagi shattered, completely destroyed, we find these strange little creatures. These are Nothics. Nothics are what can happen to a wizard when they get so old and full of secrets and subject themselves to magical experiments in the search of secret knowledge. It begins to wither them away and corrupt them, and they transform into this strange little sniveling creature. Nothics don't speak common. They do speak undercommon, but by looking at you, they can do an insight check, and if they hit a DC, they can learn a secret about you, which they can then discuss with each other. They are pretty harmless at this level, and they have no interest in attacking the party, but they're, for some reason, congregating in this vault in particular, and just sort of trying to stay out of the party's way. We make some attempts to communicate with them a little bit, but we don't try very hard. Nobody in either party speaks Undercommon. Going upstairs from here, we find a room that has a model of Castle Ravenloft and accompanying maps, and both parties are able to scope out the lay of Castle Ravenloft and take the maps for future reference. Both parties go a little bit down the hall and find a dining room all set out with this magical ewer in the center of it. We find that whoever grabs the ewer is focused by the spirits that apparate, who are mad that their dinner has been interrupted. So I just had fun because these ghosts are not like a super legitimate threat to the whole party, but they are a super legitimate threat to one character if they all focus them. So I had fun with this little encounter. I hope you guys did.
Who in Alpha was attacked?
Duncan.
Oh man, that makes sense.
Because he's such a drunk. We get near infinite wine from this, which I think at least one party was pretty underwhelmed by. It specifically says in the adventure path that any Vistani would kill for this. And many Barovians. We have a kind of a shelf out in the main chamber, this clearly cracked and damaged stone walkway that leads over to the next door. We experiment a little bit with sending people across one at a time, but we kind of get out of rotation a little bit in Alpha. We end up with a little more weight on the platform than it can sustain at one time. I think there are 2 characters on here. One of them successfully jumps to safety. The other one, unfortunately, Cookie, does not. And, oh, that X appeared too quickly. And tumbles down with the sound of cascading stone, destruction in the Amber Temple. and who, of course, is summoned by the sound of destruction in the Amber Temple, but the Amber Golem. The party can do nothing. They stand back in horror as Cookie solos the Amber Golem. They find the Amber Golem is immune to non-magical weapon damage. Cookie has no chance and is destroyed as they all listen on in horror.
Different levels of horror.
Oh no.
Is this when Nyx enters her emo phase? I don't remember.
Very well could be.
Death is inevitable.
I think Nyx was already emo when we went to Krez.
Oh yeah.
And right before Lucian died, he tried to be all like, "Hello, fellow kids," with her. And
oh yeah.
Yeah. I feel like at some point you went from saying Nyx was 12 to saying she was 13, and that's kind of when you started adapting more teenage tendencies and fewer child tendencies. Which was
shit. I don't realize I did that.
yeah, it was really great character development.
It happened in the middle of the entire week.
I mean, you know, Nyx aged like 4 years over the course of these 3 weeks, so I think it was pretty appropriate. We end up in the next chamber, which has a pretty interesting scene in it. There is a black statue in here that when we look upon it, we have to do a save or be so enraptured by it that we have to approach it and kneel before it. Different characters succeed, different ones fail. We have to go through a thing of like making it dark in here so that new people can't see the statue, so we could then, you know, rescue those who could see it. But there's one person already in this chamber when we arrive, kneeling before the statue, seemingly helpless, captivated by it, who has been here long enough that he has soiled himself, but has not yet wasted away. Holding a staff we have never seen him with before, we rescue from this situation Viktor Velakovich, who was last seen...
So much fun.
Yeah, last seen at Selenga Pass, leaving our fight with the Vrox. We rescue him here, and certain people within the party think it would be a good idea if we worked together and convince him, seeing as he's totally surrounded and has no other option, to work along with them. And he agrees reluctantly to join the party. And we've added a new companion. This next thing I'm going to kind of bust through a little bit and take a little bit out of order. Something that happens for both groups is that we find our way into a library beyond a secret door. For Alpha, they are just like trying different walls and then end up casting stone shape in a wall because we got an Amber Golem in there. We'd have to jump down to the first floor to engage with him. We're split off from our berserkers who were on the wrong side of the thing when it collapsed. Prime will eventually make their way here as well, but we get into a library and we go downstairs into a room with all these crates in it, and all these vampire spawn claw their way out of the crates. We have a battle with them. For Alpha, this is our first battle against vampire spawn in a while, and the last one we had, I think, was the Coffin Maker's shop.
Correct.
Where we survived, but we didn't really win. Here, Alpha takes a bunch of hits, but they really win. They pull it out and they destroy all the vampire spawn. For Prime, they've had the Coffin Maker shop where Tox was killed, and they had a very difficult fight with Strahd, where he had vampire spawn, where they destroyed all of them, but it was a real struggle. Now, this is not a fight. Godfrey has the holy symbol of Ravenkind, which he uses to paralyze a whole bunch of these vampires. Everybody's really got their whole act together, and we absolutely nuke the absolute shit out of these people. I hope that for you guys it was cathartic, because for me, who was really thinking about this, this is a encounter that in Chris Perkins' game just immediately killed a character. And I was fully prepared for how dangerous this was going to be. You guys just absolutely nuked it, and I hope that was a good experience, considering what you'd been through.
I don't even remember this fight, but I don't remember the fight
Oh, nice.
itself.
Yeah. I mean, it was over really quickly.
Yeah, holy cool.
Yeah. So maybe this happens first, or maybe it happens slightly afterward. Another encounter that we get into is we open up a secret door into a small chamber that has a treasure chest stuck to the ceiling, and it's lined with lead, so we can't like magically see if there's something magic inside of it. It's upside down on the ceiling, and clearly there's something fucky going on here. So we have slightly different approaches that we take, but at the end of it, We open up the chest. It's revealed to just be a trap. It fully disintegrates the floor underneath the chest. I guess in the hope that somebody would be standing right there and would be dropped into the room below, which is full of poltergeists. In Prime, Godfrey falls down and says, hey, you know what? This is fine. I can cast magic weapon. I'm pretty sure I can solo an entire room of poltergeists and have absolutely no worries. So this is an encounter you guys get to skip. Just leave me here for a while and I'll handle this.
This fucking guy.
In Alpha, nobody falls down the hole, but they're wondering how they're going to get across it. Victor uses his staff, that again we've never seen him with before, and casts Wall of Ice, but horizontal, which I let him do because this is 5th edition and it's Curse of Strahd and I can do what I want, and creates a surface over the hole that they can walk across.
But that was after, because we levitated Peregrine to the box.
Yeah.
So she was not on the ground at all when the trap went off.
Yeah.
And then nobody fell.
Yeah, everybody's fine.
Yeah.
We're walking across this when a secret door at the other end of the chamber opens, and it's directly next to somebody. And pretty much the same thing happens in Prime. I actually changed which chamber it was for the two groups because we have two different secret rooms, and both of them lead to this workshop. And you guys came at it from different directions, and I just wanted the same encounter to happen in the exact same way, so I flipped them. But at the end of it, another secret door opens, and both parties are introduced to an extremely genial, extremely friendly, extremely forgetful Lich, who does not know his own name. But he knows some things about the temple and is happy to share his information with you. In actuality, I changed a little bit about what his background is supposed to be, but it's something that you couldn't really ever learn, so it doesn't really matter. It was just kind of how I was playing him in the background. This temple was created by good-aligned wizards, and they were eventually corrupted by its influence. They took to more and more nefarious means of prolonging their own lives and defending the temple until eventually they just kind of flaked off into madness and all perished. So I just made Exothanter one of those wizards instead of just a different wizard who shows up later and is just like a really evil guy. I thought it would be more interesting for him to have once had good intentions and be able to teach you like the history of this temple to some extent, rather than just some other dude who is not really attached to it in any way. So he is not able to tell you his name, Exothanter. He's not able to tell you a terrible lot, but he knows that he is a guardian of this place. He has some idea of the structure around it, but when it comes to details, he's extremely foggy. In Alpha, Action and Van Richten, for reasons we have just been discussing, are almost on site with this guy. We are face to face with a Lich unexpectedly after going through our backstories about why that's such a trigger for us. But he's being extremely friendly. And another aspect to this in Alpha is he says, oh, could you help me with something? A few days ago, this woman mysteriously appeared in the temple. And when she saw me, she just like attacked me for no reason. So just every once in a while, I have to touch her again to paralyze her again so she stops trying to kill me. Could you help me calm down this woman who I just have paralyzed in my room here? We are able to do this for him. We are able to unparalyze Esmeralda and talk her down from destroying this Lich. She feels much better having everybody here. Since she last saw Peregrine, she went off into the castle dungeons to do some exploring, but did end up also escaping through the brazier shortly after Peregrine did. And the location she came to, she was looking for, I think it says something like secret knowledge, and that took her to the Amber Temple in the room where those vampire spawn were. She wandered out from there, ended up here, and has been here ever since. They have this little reunion, she and Peregrine. Van Richten is still in disguise as Rictavio, which she has never seen. And she does not see through it immediately, and he does not reveal himself to her immediately. So as far as she's concerned, this is Peregrine's group of adventurers that she is meeting and who have rescued her. And they're now trying to figure out what to do with this Lich. she says, hey, since I saw you, though, I didn't really get a chance to talk with you about this before, but while exploring the dungeons, I discovered this book, which one of your cards led me to. This is how in Alpha I get you the Tome of Strahd earlier than you guys going to the castle. That was why I had Esmeralda in the castle to begin with, although she is actually a random encounter you can run into in the castle if you haven't met her already. So it's seeded that she could be there. I wanted her to arrive and do the reading so that she could go find the Tome of Strahd and eventually get it to the party before you ended up in Castle Ravenloft for the final chapter. So the party gets it here. I'm keeping an eye on the time we have, and I'm trying to remember what my next slide is for a good stopping point. The next thing that I'm going to talk about a little bit is... Yeah, we'll leave off on this. Another thing that you find in this workshop, that both parties find, is a book that is labeled The Incants of Exathanter. This is Exathanter's spell book, though he doesn't remember that. It has all of his spells, but it also has a list of all the vaults in the Amber Temple and what dark spirits can be encountered there. It lists them by name. He doesn't know that's what this is, but you could figure it out. If you put a hand on the sarcophagi and commune with a vestige, it will, without fail, tell you its name, because they want, more than anything, to be remembered. Most of these vaults are pretty obvious, and you can just kind of see them and recognize them by their doors, but a couple of them are not so much, and so the incants here with its list might tell you that there are more vaults than we are aware of. These are the obvious ones, and these are the ones that are hidden behind secret doors. The room with the vampire spawn is counted as a vault, even though it doesn't have the classic amber door that all the others have. At this point, Exathanter becomes something of a quandary, because it is clear that he remembers just enough to be super unhelpful. That you can ask him questions as long as you want, and he will tease you around the answers, but without his memories, he is just kind of bumbling and can't really give you a specific direction. Van Richten, who is with both parties at this point, so I tell this directly to Luke, and Van Richten in Prime just tells them this when they're away from the Lich for a time. He says, I believe with my greater restoration spell, I could restore his memory. That might very much change his demeanor, which right now seems pretty harmless, but it could be the key to learning a lot more about this temple. In Alpha, we're extremely reluctant to do something like that because we hate liches so badly. Well, a couple of party members feel this way. One party member thinks that this guy is awesome. And we're going to talk a bit more about how that whole situation is going to develop later. Nobody immediately returns Exathanter's memories to him. Both parties are going to sit on that for a bit and come back to it later. We are now at 9:33, and I think this is a pretty good stopping point. So I might just call it here.
All right.
Sounds good.
Do we have any
Thank you for continuing this, Alan?
Yeah, thank you guys for joining. I think I remember that Ashley and Derek, you said you would not be available next Monday. We used to be out for the wedding at that time.
I think we do next Monday.
Okay.
There's just nothing pretty much after today
This week.
until then.
Yeah, totally fine. Okay. Well, unless I hear a resounding chorus, I might try to shoot for next Monday then, to have the next one of these. I'll give you guys just an update. We're on slide 280 right now. I have so far written 340 slides, and I'm in Castle Ravenloft with both parties. So I'm hoping to finish everything before 400 slides. But thank you for your... I really had not conceived of how long it would take to go through all of this. I appreciate that as detailed as I feel I am being, you guys keep adding in more details that I did not include. So I hope that this means that you guys are having a good time with this process. So
Definitely.
I might actually get to join next week.
I am pretty sure that we'll reach Carter next session. It took a long time in our first recap, and it's taken even longer now. So thank you for your forbearance. We'll be getting to you soon.